Everybody, this is Con. I'm now driving the Mercedes-Benz E-Class Coupe. Now, Mercedes have always been building coupe derivatives of the E-Class sedan going back all the way to the 1960s to the W114-8 model. Of course, back in those days, before Mercedes had the current, CES model designation, right? These coupes were not called the E-Class coupes. They were just called the 250CE, 280CE and whatnot. Okay, until mid-1990s with the W124 facelift, that the E-Class model designation was officially introduced, and that was when for the first time we had a model officially called the E-Class Coupe. But the so-called E-Class Coupe did not last long, because when Mercedes launched the W210 E-Class, which in my opinion till today is the worst E-Class ever, they introduced something called the CLK Coupe, which is a coupe, a two-door coupe that looks like an E-Class but built with a C-Class platform. Then the 211 E-Class came along. Then of course accompanying it was an all-new CLK that once again was based on the C-Class. Then in 2009, when the W212 E-Class came along, that was when Mercedes finally resurrected the E-Class Coupe name, but they continued to build it off the C-Class platform, which I believe the initial decision was to have called it the CLK, and then somewhere along the line Mercedes changed its mind and called it the E-Class Coupe, because shortly after that, a few years later, Mercedes then went on to introduce a proper C-Class Coupe. So perhaps it was at that time that, when that decision was made, right, Mercedes find, hey, this is weird, why am I building two coupes of the C-Class platform? So from then on, as the W213 program, kicked along, okay, the coupe derivative for the W213 E-Class, which is the C238 that I'm driving here today, for the first time in 20 years, 2 decades, is an E-Class coupe based on an E-Class platform. So globally, the E-Class Coupe is available with a wide range of engines. There's the diesel engine, there are V6 engines, and more recently, Mercedes has also introduced a 2-liter mild hybrid engine that is good for 299 horsepower. In Malaysia, the E-Class Coupe is offered in 2 variants, both powered by 2-liter inline-4 engines. There's the E200 that I'm driving now with 184 horsepower. Then there's also the E300 with 245 horsepower. So if you have watched the video on Bobby's channel, I have co-hosted his review that's posted on his channel. So in this video, I'm reviewing this car individually on my own, giving my own opinions. And with that, we shall start with the exterior walkaround. Headlight, door handle. These are the only 2 external body components that the E-Class Coupe shares with the sedan. Now, superficially, as you can see, the face of the E-Coupe may look the same as the sedan, but it is actually very slightly different. Notice the lower edge of the bumper here. Okay, this is our test car here is AMG line spec. This is the standard exterior trim of the E-Class Coupe specified in Malaysia. Overseas, you also get the avant-garde trim as well. But here, this AMG line trim, okay, the coupe here is this part is sharper. Okay, with the sedan, okay, in the sedan with the same AMG line trim, this part is rounder. Okay, so even though roughly they look the same, okay, they may even be interchangeable, the body part may even be interchangeable, but it is different. It is not the same, it is not the identical component. Now this grille, this diamond mesh grille, this is also unique to the coupe. If you have the AMG line trim with the sedan, this large central stud that is flanked by two horizontal slats as opposed to one you see here. So totally different. Okay, the bonnet also is different from the sedan. You notice that these two power bulges here. I mean, the funny thing is, right now there is no V8 version of the E-Class Coupe, but they have this power bulge here. Overall, okay, this is the E-Coupe is a very stunning looking car, if you ask me. Very beautiful car. The proportions wise is very sedan like. It has a more upright kind of stance. It really reminds us of the old-fashioned E-Class Coupe, the big regal C123 and C124 coupes. Yeah, there's a very stately grace to it. Now the side here, in the E-Class sedan, you know this the side here, there's a very strong, very sharp character line that runs along the side. Here in the coupe, this is more rounded. So from there, okay, that is why we know for certain that even this front fender panel is not shared with the sedan. Neither is the side mirror for that matter. So Mercedes differentiates sedans and coupes with this one design cue. Okay, with the sedan, the side mirror comes out from the base of the A-pillar here, whereas in coupe, if the car in the hierarchy is designated as a coupe, the side mirror rises from the door. Okay. Now our test car comes standard with 18-inch wheels. In appearance, they look a little under-tired, but to me it is a sensible specification, because then 18-inch with the passive suspension gives this car the best compromise in ride quality. So at the back, this is the new trademark Mercedes coupe look. Two narrow slit tail lights with a bumper mounted number plate. And if you look closer at the tail lights, you see these little patterns. Okay, we see these patterns first introduced in the E-Class sedan. So when you lock and unlock the car, the lighting elements illuminate in a sequence to slowly fill up the entire section. Okay, Mercedes says that it is the car's way of saying hello to you. Okay, but it only works at night, and I would reckon, right, if there is one car in which, even though it has keyless entry, but I will use the remote to unlock just for the heck of it, this would be it lah. So let's look at the boot. Remote release. So this is a decently large size boot with split folding rear seats. So you can this lever, you can pull this to unlock the seat, which you can fold. And it is a very decently sized boot. You can open this. Down there is a large compartment to store away items. This also you can put your whatever loose items here lah. Okay, here, and there's this hook here which you pull down to hook your stuff. And power closing, very nice. Okay, let's look inside. So the E-Coupe, one noticeable feature of this E-Coupe, these rear windows also can be opened, which is why you have this split glass here, because Mercedes wanted to create this long window line, okay, right up to the back here. But if they do not split open this glass, what happens is that this section of the glass cannot come down, because it will interfere with the fuel line as well as the view arch. So the compromise, they cut the glass here, in which this section of the glass can go much further all the way down. Okay, now just give you one glance over. Very nicely spacious interior. Okay, this one I just opened earlier, and keyless entry. So open, Okay, let me demonstrate something to you. Close it back. Then the seatbelt actually extends. This actually extends out to serve you the seatbelt, so you don't have to stretch all the way back to pull the seatbelt out. You actually don't get this useful feature in the C-Class Coupe. Yeah, but in the E-Class, you get it. Now, the overall layout of the cabin, this is nothing new if you have seen the E-Class sedan. It is roughly the same layout. You get that same widescreen cockpit, but one differentiating touch are these vents. Oh my god, I love the design of these vents. Mercedes call this the jet turbine vent, which I personally think it looks absolutely stunning, and I think they've put this in the new upcoming A-Class. And yeah, so hopefully we'll see this in other Mercedes models as well. Look absolutely stunning. But otherwise, right, this is the same cabin as you see, the same dashboard as you see in the E-Class sedan. Okay, very beautifully designed, if not exactly ergonomics goes out to the 5 Series. Build quality not quite as solid as the Audi A4, but in terms of sheer, you know, showroom appeal, sheer design flair, right, this is definitely best in segment. Now let's focus more a bit at the back. So pull this seat down to get in. Double space I have. This is decently spacious. Really decently spacious. I mean, I've got a good, okay, the seat here needs to be further back, but I've got a good amount of leg room. Okay, I can cross my legs here, and so you see, this cup holder here is, so this is not to be set on lah. But at the back here, you see I've got very good thigh support, and yeah, good thigh support, good leg room. Headroom also is not bad. Anybody bigger than my 170 cm frame is going to find this a tight. Headroom is not bad. So anybody bigger than my 170 cm frame is going to find a little tight fitting here, but still 170 cm. Many people of my size or my body size, so yeah, you can fit a decent number of passengers here. So if let's say like you are a small family with just 2 kids, 2 growing teenage kids, this is not too bad a place to be in. But funnily enough, this window, there are no switches here from the rear to operate. That's to be operated by the driver. So many people argue that coupes, cabriolets, two-door vehicles in general are not very practical family vehicles, and in many instances people are right. But here I'll try to demonstrate the feasibility of the E-Class Coupe as a family vehicle by attempting to install my ISOFIX child seat. And as many of you would have seen some of my previous videos, I use a Recaro 01 ISOFIX child seat, one of the bulkier seats available in the market, but one which I chose because of its 360-degree swivel feature. So I've already found that the Mazda CX-3, as for one example, cannot accommodate the 01. So can the E-Class take the 01? So let's start things off. There are ISOFIX mounts on both rear seats. So to start off, I have to remove the ISOFIX brackets from down here, and I'm going to try to put the seat in. Now, to ensure a maximum convenient opening aperture, I have to ensure that all the windows are lowered so that it's easier for me to maneuver the seat. Slide the seat in. Okay. Alright, fit in without much problems. So of course, now this seat is installed in its forward-facing position. Let me turn it to face back. The driver's seat here is in my preferred seating position. Let me just get inside. Okay, I can still fit in here. Okay, now because of its 300-degree swivel feature, it is actually quite easy for me to load my baby into the child seat. So all I had to do is turn the seat to face roughly this direction. Now open the door, pull the seat forward, and I have quite a decent opening in which I can just step in and put my baby in, strap her, and then just turn her back in this direction. But understandably, not everybody will have a what you call that, 360-degree swivel child seat. So what if your child seat is the type where you are secured, you know, that you are fixed, you know, in a rearward sitting position? So I'm going to experiment with that. Now, one of the good things about the E-Class Coupe is that because this window can open, okay, you can actually put your child through like this. So, right, down here, of course, the opening aperture is not so easy for me to reach the child seat, but you see, I can. So there she is, strapped in. So now let's unstrap her. Okay, take her out. Gwen, come. Not exactly straightforward, yes, but definitely doable. Of course, the alternative arrangement is to come in via the opposite side, and you know, from here, which you have easy access, put your baby into the child seat. Don't think I need to demonstrate the buckling process lah. Once you're done, bring her out and disembark. No sweat, but maybe you want your partner at the side here standing by to receive the baby lah. Alright, so let's take the car seat out. So this small opening makes removing the bulkier child seats a bit more difficult than need be than most four-seater cars would, but it's still not too difficult. So as far as two-door vehicles go, this car is as child-friendly as it gets. So the overall driving experience of the E-Coupe, well, simply put, is not a very exciting car to drive. But then again, that was never in its brief, okay? Because if you go back to the C123 and the C124 coupes, right, these vehicles were meant to be luxury first and sportiness, right? It is a very distant second priority. So the same kind of philosophy is quite evident in the C238 coupe. Now, if you remember, of course, the CLK as well as the previous gen C207 E-Class Coupe, those were more sporty vehicles simply because they were based on the C-Class platform. Hence, you know, because they were sitting on a smaller platform, they were a bit more agile, a bit more reactive, a bit more excitable. This current one, because it's now sits on an E-Class platform, okay, it has a more regal feel, it has a more stately feel as it moves about. And so with this car, right, even though 184 horsepower, 300 Newton meters of torque, this day and age is considered quite average performance, but in the context of the E-Coupe, right, in terms of mere straight line performance, right, it's good enough. It will get the E-Coupe going fast enough, you know, for most users. Of course, Bobby argues that for an extra 60,000, the E300 Coupe is a very, very worthwhile upgrade, and I agree with him. But my point also is that the E200 actually offers more than adequate performance for the kind of driving experience that this car actually tries to promise, which is, you know, to be a very relaxing, very stately, very luxurious long distance cruiser that you can jump in at point A, drive 300, 400 kilometers all the way to point B and emerge totally unscathed, totally unexhausted by the whole journey. Now, but of course, if I were to be really particular, right, I would argue that the kind of driving experience we would expect from the E-Coupe would really be best served with a big capacity engine. Now, last year, while I was still working with Carlis, I had the opportunity to attend the international media launch of the E-Coupe in Barcelona, and at that event I managed to experience the E220 diesel, the E300 petrol, as well as the E400 3-litre V6 4MATIC. And most of my drive time in that event was in the E300, which naturally should be because that's the most relevant spec for our market. But my brief run in the E400, right, confirms to me that really it is the bigger engine that truly gives the kind of mechanical refinement and mechanical richness that you really want in a big coupe like this. But of course, understandably, in our market, which taxes cars based on displacement, any appeal of the E400 3-litre, right, would be quite limited. So it is quite understandable that Mercedes-Benz Malaysia stacks all its chips on the 2-litre variant. But actually, the best experience of the E-Coupe really would be with the 3-litre V6 engine, or even a bigger engine that, you know, that would give this car a more relaxed, a more refined rolling character. Because in terms of sheer straight line performance, a good driver in an E300 will keep up with the E400 any day. But we are not talking about just pure acceleration. We are talking about the manner in which performance is delivered. And I would argue that for this car to have this big grand touring coupe feel, a bigger engine would really add that final layer of polish that make this a truly exceptional car. The handling of this car is competent, unremarkable, not the area of focus where it's concerned. It's not the kind of car that you would buy for a Genting run or Uluyam run, but for what it is, you know, as a luxurious coupe to cruise around, entirely adequate. It is good enough. But sportiness is not a major concern with this car. What we prioritize more with the E-Coupe is that it should be supremely comfortable, and for the most part it is. Primary ride of this car is excellent. You can send this car over bumps and potholes and feel relatively untroubled by the experience. But it is the secondary ride that still sends a little bit of jitters back into the cabin, and that is that final tenth of polish that Mercedes neglected to make, that would have made the E-Class exceptional, truly exceptional, rather than merely very good. Now, if this ride quality were to be presented in the C-Class Coupe, this would have been brilliant. But with the E-Class, our expectations is raised a little, and my expectations is that the suspension really should isolate the surface imperfections a bit better. Recounting back my experience from the international media drive in Barcelona last year, the cars that I drove some had air suspension, some had adaptive suspension. Those were truly outstanding. This car here runs on passive suspension, and it comes back to another point that I've once made before. It seems to me that in amongst many car makers, the engineers set their cars up with adaptive suspension or air suspension as the default, and the base passive suspension, it is like a spec down from the default. It is unlike the good old days where computer-aided engineering was not in the picture. Air suspension was too expensive. Adaptive suspension, too complicated. Those days, car makers really had to tune their passive steel spring setup to deliver a one-size-fits-all solution. These days, when you have air suspension, when you have adaptive suspension, at the press of a button, you can make your car sporty or you can make your car comfortable, right? It is actually a lot easier to tune your cars, okay, with different setups rather than having to focus so much effort to hone your one passive suspension setup to deliver a setting that balances both sportiness and comfort. And that is what I feel not just Mercedes, a lot of car manufacturers seem to be neglecting. And when you test, and when we test cars that we know that in some other market that has adaptive or air suspension, somehow the passive suspension that usually makes it to Malaysia, there is something missing. But overall, the concept of this E-Coupe, it is a fantastic concept. I mean, you have a generously sized 4-seater, 2-door coupe that is properly spacious inside, that you can accommodate your family in decent comfort. 4 people in decent comfort from, say, KL to Penang, KL to JB. You can accommodate 4 people in this car, no problems. It's just that you have to get in, you only have 2 doors to get in and out. But 4 occupants in this car on a long distance drive, you're not going to hear complaints of discomfort. And plus the fact is, for this size of car, Mercedes is able to package a very road tax friendly 2-liter engine that offers respectable level of performance. Yes, earlier I argued that the best experience of this car would be served with a large capacity engine, but the reality is most of us still are still concerned by road tax, are still concerned by fuel consumption, and Mercedes offering of a 2-liter engine with a coupe of this size is thoroughly unique in this segment. And when you examine everything, right, all aspects of this car, even though the driving experience is quite average, right, this is a brilliant car. It is a brilliant overall car. It's beautiful to look at. It is a car, right, which I would say you look good driving it, and at the same time it is a very practical all-round car. In short, right, I will summarize this car as it is a surprisingly practical car that is at the same time very, very good looking. So you can still serve your family duties very capably with this car and not look like an uncle in the process. So every time when I look at the E-Coupe, I'm just amazed that none of Audi, BMW, Lexus, Volvo actually have a coupe of this size, of this performance, of this price point. Because this is such, to me, right, this is such a brilliant car. Honestly, if I were to have 400,000 or 500,000 lying around in there, which I can spend on a car, I give this one some very serious thought, because the blend of abilities, the proposition that this car offers is very, very unique, and one that really appeals to me. Yeah, so that concludes my thoughts on the E-Class E200 Coupe. Let me know your thoughts. Drop me a line in the comment section below. Until my next video, thanks for watching. Bye for now.